good evening and welcome back to Wednesday Night Live, coming to you from beautiful Pocatello, Idaho, in the beautiful Portneuf Valley, gateway to the great Northwest. We're glad you joined us. We're going to have a guest tonight, and I think you'll find him as interesting as I do, and we're going to have a nice discussion on things in general. But first I want to do, as I do every week at this time, I want to talk to you briefly about Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center. Now, the Compassion and Hope, as I have told you, they are the counterpart to Planned Parenthood. In other words, Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center is about life. And isn't life beautiful, especially for the unborn? We want to keep it that way. So, Josh, are we good to show that first? No, not yet. Okay, we'll be there in just a minute. We want to encourage you. Remember the phone number. Now, if you're outside of Pocatello and outside of Idaho, the area code here is 208. So if you just remember that. And then the phone number is so easy that even I can remember it without a teleprompter, 478-HOPE. Why don't you call them, 478-HOPE. Call them and see what you can do to maybe give them a helping hand. Because everything you can do for them is going to be for the better, for life. Some child yet unborn, a mother who was maybe not expecting to be a mother, maybe is unmarried, is going to need the help that you can provide, and only you can provide it. So if you would contact Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center at 208-478-HOPE. See what you can do. Just give them a call. Their hours are limited because they're small. Their funding is very small, so you may get the recording. They'll give you their hours, and if they do, call them back. See what you can do to help them. All right, how are we doing, Josh? All right, this is just 30 seconds. Just bear with us a minute, would you please? Watch this. That says it all. How could anybody look at that precious gift from God and not know that that is a life that needs to be born? So, 478-HOPE, give them a call, see what you can do to help them out. And also, as I've said many times before, and I'll just quickly tell you, just go by and, if you're out and about doing some shopping and get a little fatigued in the afternoon or something, or if you're dropping off the kids and you're still not awake yet and you'd like to get a cup of coffee or hot chocolate or something, stop by the Double Shot. They're a little drive-through kiosk, the little sheds, if you will. There are two of them. There's one at Jefferson and Elm, down by the K&B Quick Stop, close to Oak. I think their hours are 6 to 6. And then there's another one over by the Green Tea Room in the Chubbuck area, that little triangle at Quinn Road, Pocatello, Yellowstone, and the other name, Pole Line. There's another one there. Stop by, get a good cup of coffee. Pick up one of those frequent use cards, and every 10th cup you get one for free. Can't beat a deal like that. You're not going to get that from the government, even if they say it's for free. We know if they say it's for free, it means that you and I are paying through the nose for it, but not at Double Shot. So if you're a coffee drinker like I am, and if you really like good coffee, go by and see them. And I say that because they help Compassion and Hope a great deal, and I'm always looking for some way we can help the unborn. All right, so we're going to talk about, now we're in a campaign season, and people are running for office. We're going to be, this Friday is the annual Lincoln-Reagan dinner extravaganza, gala, whatever it is. All of the big shot Republicans are going to come up here, going to have all the establishment Republicans in one place. I probably shouldn't even say it like that, have them too close together. They're going to have everybody from the governor. You're going to have Senator Crapo, Senator Risch, Congressman Simpson will be there, as well as people who are running for office running against Simpson, and that's Brian Smith. And I would urge you to go to Brian Smith's web page and take a look at him, see if there's anything you want to do to get involved with Brian Smith. I think he's a very viable, good candidate, and we're certainly doing what we can to help his candidacy. It's about all I can really say on that. But so Brian Smith will be there. Each of the candidates will have a couple minutes, and literally, in fact, the candidates that are not that well known yet are only going to have 1 minute to speak to make their case. Boy, you can't do a whole lot in 1 minute. But I guess it's the luxury of being in the batter's box. If you have the bat, you kind of control what's going on. The people that are already in office will get 3 or 4 minutes, depending who are there or who they are. Probably be about 200 or 300 people at this event. So that's this Friday. So we're in the political season. May is the primaries, and in May, that's when you get to make a choice about who you really want. You know, do you want the establishment Republicans that are in office right now, or do you think it's time for some changes? And I hope you're going to think that it's time for some changes. So tonight we have the honor to host one of those men who is seeking office, seeking to help to make a change more locally, and that's in the local level. And so without beating it to death, I'd like to introduce you to Dennis Spencer. Dennis, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you being here.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Dennis and I have become friends over the last couple of years, and I was very pleased when he was asked to run for office, and he said yes. And you know, boy, you're taking a big step these days when you say yes to running for office. You know.
I can handle it.
You can handle it. And he can, because he's been in office before. You know, let me just give you a few details about who Dennis H. Spencer, and Dennis is going to tell you what that H means. He can do it better than I can, but it's important. And when he told me that, I thought, you know, I like this. Well, we'll let you tell about it. But let me say a little bit about who Dennis H. Spencer is. He's born in Montpelier and raised in Dingle. Now, I must confess, I've never been to Dingle, and I had to ask him about Dingle, which is an island. You said it's a little island town, small town. Yeah. Down by Montpelier, down that area.
8 miles north of Bear Lake.
Yeah, okay.
The east side of the valley.
He went to Idaho State. He was self-employed.
No, Utah State.
I'm sorry. I should have put my glasses on. It says right here, Utah State. Oh, my goodness. I want to put my glasses on so I don't do that again. I'm going by the notes that I have here, and I should have had these on. Utah State, self-employed, owned and operated a lumber yard, took a course on the Constitution in the late 70s, and that's going to be important. We'll tell you why that's important in a minute. You probably already know. The course was offered by Cleon Skousen, and if you've read about Cleon Skousen, or if you've had, as Dennis has had the privilege of meeting him, I never had that privilege. I wish I had, but I have heard him and I have read him, and boy, that's a pretty good starting point for
great guy.
Great guy, and he had some important stuff to talk about.
Yes, and
we might get to touch on that. But that got him interested in running for public office when he was old enough to do so, and so he ran for county commissioner in Bear Lake County, and he was elected. Served for 4 years. He was instrumental in establishing a fire district for all the county. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty.
And there's a lot to it, and we can talk about that a little bit too.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. He was a volunteer fireman for the Dingle Fire Station, and this station was one of 3 stations called to assist at the Cokeville, Wyoming school bombing. Now, I'm not familiar with that. Tell me about that.
Years ago, there was the chief of police that was fired, and he was upset, and he came back, brought his estranged wife with him to come in. He looked at Montpelier. He stopped at A.J. Winter School, and that didn't work out, so he went up to Cokeville. He took the school children at hostage. He actually shot one of the teachers in the arm, and what happened is they had them all in one room, and they had the bombs taped around their sides, and he had to go into another room or something. He told his wife to watch the kids because they were whimpering and crying, and they were quite upset. But anyhow, they had clothespins, and if anybody tried to attack them or whatever, if they break the connection on that bomb, it would set it off. Well, she got excited. She raised her hand, and it broke the connection that set the bomb off.
Right. Now, when did this happen?
This was in the 70s, and they made a film out of it. It's on. They made a movie of it.
That was before I got here. I'd never heard of this before.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. There's a lot to it. But anyhow, so he came in, didn't kill her instantly, and so he finished her off, and then he went and shot himself. And
this was the former chief of police?
Yes. He was upset because he was fired, and so he went in and took that, and that's what happened. But anyhow, with the fire district, Bear Lake County has a reciprocal agreement between Rich County, Utah, and Lincoln County, Wyoming, because our houses were so close on the boundary. So we were called, 3 units were called out. Dingle was one of them, and so I was one of the units that called. The county fire chief, Don Burdick, he called and says there's a hostage situation in Cokeville. Be on standby. We want you to be up there if you need to. And so within a half hour, the alert went off, code 3, lights and siren to Coville, the bomb went off. And but that was quite an experience. There's more to it. There's quite a story behind that and what happened. And
my goodness, though, we're so accustomed to that kind of stuff today that we don't realize in the 70s stuff. I'll be darned.
Yeah. But it was quite an experience, and that's why I was involved with it with the county fire department. And so I got to experience that.
And I can say after 30 years in law enforcement, I never was in a situation like that. How about from a big city?
Yeah. My
word, that's fascinating. Well, let me go on a little more. I suspect we're going to find lots of things to talk about in here. So he also served on a jail inspection team for the 7 southern counties. Now that must have been fascinating.
That was through the Association of Counties. They asked me to be on an inspection team. Okay, that included Bear Lake, Caribou, Franklin, Oneida, Bannock, Power, Bingham. I think that was the 7.
Now inspection teams, what were you inspecting?
We inspected the jails.
Make sure they were functioning properly?
Yes, yeah, and some of them were about ready to be closed because they just weren't up to par because they had some breakouts, and so but we were on that inspection team, and it was quite an experience that we had of that.
The more I learn about my adopted state, my wife and I have lived here now 8 years, and we absolutely love it. But since we haven't been here all our life, we don't know a lot of this history. And every time I meet someone like you who is part of that history, I just want to sit and absorb it. There's so much to learn. There's so much there. And it's interesting. Now, this is a very brief resume. I mean, we're just scratching the surface. But we're going to see how eminently qualified Dennis is, if for no other reason but the experiences he had and the things that he did before or during when you were a county commissioner. So, all right, so let me see what else we have here, then we're going to get into this. Now, you also, you served on a committee for solid waste management. And that's an interesting thing, because that's been very controversial here.
Yeah. We didn't get involved with it a lot because we didn't have a lot of time. I got in on the committee. We got involved with how that should be held and how she handled, with everything with the solid waste. And so I don't remember a lot about it. I do about the jail inspection, team, but I don't remember a lot about the management. And
it's interesting to me, especially since you're proposing taking on a pretty big job here, but not everybody does that job. Not everybody lives up to that job, and you've been there. Yep. You've been a county commissioner, so it's not like you're breaking new ground. You've done that. There's a lot to running a county that we take so much for granted we don't even think about it. Yeah. Solid waste is one of those things when, I put out my garbage can every Friday morning and I expect it's going to get emptied. Yes. I never think about where it goes. I don't want to think about where it goes and what happens with it. But somewhere...
A lot of things have changed since then. There's just been a lot of new developments with the way they have to put in the clay and stuff to keep it from seeping into the aquifers. And so... well,
we've lived. We've had to learn all this. Well, let's tell you a little bit more about Dennis personally. Now, he married the former Lois Satterfield Hancock, and between them, they have 10 children. That's a pretty good-sized family. Mm-hmm. And how long have you been married, Dennis?
6 years ago.
You just got married. Yeah. You're almost a newlywed.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations belatedly.
Well, thanks. Okay. We celebrated our 50th. A year ago last April, 50th month, because we won't make 50 years. That was her idea.
Well, I'm going to one-up you. This year's my 50th year.
So
he said, "You're almost a newlywed." So that's great. That's terrific. And you have 10 children, and you were telling me about a couple of your sons because you were a homeschool dad.
Yes, we were. Teachers may be certified, but they're not qualified, and my boys were struggling, and. We homeschooled them. I was county commissioner at the time. I took them with me to ARCO. We had some meetings over there, went over to the site where the reactor was and showed them that. We met up in Burley with the Association of Counties, and J.R. Simplot was there. Gave the boys a hat, and Declo High School came in and gave him a diploma for graduating from high school because he never graduated from high school.
And I bet they never forgot the hat or the high school or anything.
Yeah. And so, it's interesting because the boys have done well. My oldest boy, he graduated from Idaho State here in welding and mechanics, and my other son was up here, and then he went to Utah State, and then Pullman, and then Austin. He has 2 master's degrees. and he's done very well. And so we gave him a good start, and it's been really good. So.
And that's homeschooling.
Yes, that was the homeschooling.
My daughter homeschooled, and we were talking a little bit off camera about this, but I think it is such a neat thing to homeschool because you have to be dedicated. I'm sure there are parents out there that aren't, but I haven't met one of them yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched my daughter, God bless her. I would never have thought of it. My own child, I know she's a very bright young woman. She was in Christian schools her whole life.
Mm-hmm. I
I know she got a pretty good education. I never thought of her as being a teacher until she became a teacher.
Yeah.
And it is a calling, and we're not bum rapping the educational system or the teachers. We're simply talking about a different part of it.
And as I was talking to you earlier, the school district down there was trying to close the old high school. And of course, that's where I went to high school. And we found that they had published it and they were a day late. So I had to file a suit against them to stop the tearing down of the high school so that they could continue using it. Well, they did. And they put an elevator in there and they used it as a middle school, and it's still working fine. And so, I'm for the school system, and I'm not trying to deviate from it with being a homeschooler, because our children have all gone to college and they've done very well.
Well, and I think it was prudent because you proved a very good point. You don't always have to be spending money.
Yeah.
You don't always have to have something new to replace something that's functioning or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things we look for from our county commissioners, as well as other elected officials. We'd like them to save us some money.
Yeah.
We haven't had that kind of luck here in the last few years.
That's right.
And we're going to probably get on that in a minute. But let's see. Let's go a little further here now. See. So in 2010, now you say they became involved.
Well,
you and
my
your
wife and I. Yeah, we were the only ones. Nobody else was helping us.
Mm-hmm. And this is when you ran for county commissioner.
Yes.
Before 2010.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And this is interesting because you and I have both we're both in the Republican Party. We both have very definite views about capital R Republican, small r Republican, what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get any help from the Republican Party? Did they?
No, they tried to talk me out of it.
And isn't that interesting? Because that is actually a violation of law.
They didn't know I was declaring, and I had some calls, and they even called down to Bear Lake to check out how I did down there, how I voted. And one of the individuals says, are you one of those John Birchers or Tea Party people? And I said, no, I'm Republican.
So they actually pointed a finger at you asking.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. And
these are Republicans.
Yes, and that's unfortunate. But they didn't find anything bad about me down there. I did what I did, and I voted against some things that had nothing to do with county government. We have a fiduciary responsibility to run a government it's the taxpayers. It's as much my money as anybody's money.
That's right.
And so we have a trust that they have in us to handle it in a prudent way. And so I was very careful about that. And I voted against some of the stuff. The Little League wanted $2,000 for a chain link fence, and they voted against me. And so I was called a radical, and it's unfortunate.
How dare you try to save us some money? Who do you think you are?
Well, and it's you just after taking a course on the Constitution. Cleon Skousen was very smart in what he taught. We had to fill in the blanks when we took the course, and he said that you retain 75% of what you learn if you hear it or if you go through it 7 times.
7
times. You retain 75% of what you've learned. If you listen to a recording or something, 7 times you retain 75%, and that's what's interesting about. Cleon, we even had him in Dingle. That's pretty hard for somebody to, that affluent.
That's kind of interesting too, because he was he was a former FBI guy.
Yes.
And
Chief of Police in Salt Lake.
Yes. Very well-read, well-educated man.
Yes.
And yet he was not willing to. He was willing to get down in the trenches, so to speak, roll up his sleeves and shake hands with the working class and be part of it, while understanding what made the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm glad I met him, and it was
what a
good
privilege.
experience. Yeah, it was really good.
Well, now let's see. So you and your wife, now you got into this, and you didn't get a whole lot of help from the establishment part of the Republican Party.
No.
I know what that flag had been there. Well, how did you do?
Well, you know, they told me they only give maybe 5% of the vote,
Yeah.
but we got over 31% of the vote for an unknown.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, you got to start somewhere. And,
Absolutely.
And so, you know, talking with people the last couple of 3 years, they have encouraged me to run, and that's what I decided to do. You know, we're going to continue on with what we believe in, and we're going to pursue, you know, trying to make, you know, Bannock County, it's one of the highest tax counties in the state, and we
Yep.
got to change that. And why is that happening? Why are we there? You know, how come? You know, what's going on?
And you know, I've spoken about this very thing about the high rate of tax here, and I've been told by our county commissioners that I'm full of gas, but their own figures show that
Yeah.
we are, I think, the second highest taxed in the entire state. And we weren't always second. We were first for a while.
Yes, yeah,
they don't like to
that's
talk about that either.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, you know, I haven't seen, the commissioners have been kind of quiet the last couple of years, but I haven't seen where they have been saving us any money.
You know, it's unfortunate. You know, they probably have some opposition with each other, and they have times where they disagree on stuff, but I don't think there's any place in there where they have actually voted against each other.
Yeah.
You know, and that's you got to have some opposition, and you know, it's fine to iron things out and get some things, you know, resolved, but you know, if you're not for something, you don't, you know, you vote no.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
you stand your ground with it.
And that's one of the things, I think that's one of the big problems we've been having with government now for an awful long time. It's nothing new. I mean, historically we have, the bigger the government, the more, excuse me, Margaret Thatcher made the comment that socialism is great until you run out of other people's money.
Yeah.
And really,
Yeah.
no matter what we call ourselves, a constitutional republic, however it is,
Yeah.
these guys get in the high price zone. They get a good solid salary with nice benefits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what a commissioner makes, but they don't do badly in this county. And they kind of forget why they said they were going in there.
Yeah.
And then here we have, now this is kind of an unusual county here, I suppose. And I can only relate it to what my prior experiences was. Los Angeles County, I think, had 5 members. So you had a little bit more balance. When you have only 3, and they've all been raised together, gone to school together, quite likely they're maybe even married into each other's families because we're a small community, it's pretty hard not to think that maybe intended or otherwise that there's possibility of some problems there.
Yeah.
And so you, in a way, you kind of present a problem because you're not part of the good old boy system.
That's right. And I talked about that, you know, 4 years ago or 3 years ago, and I learned a lot. And you know, I thought, okay, I'm not going to give up. We're going to pursue it. And this is something that my wife and I decided to do. I want to put in a plug for my wife.
Oh, by all means.
She's a professional dog handler and groomer, and she's taught me a lot about animals.
Yeah.
You know, we had our farm animals when we were in Dingle. You know, we loved our animals, our dogs and our cats. But she has a special hand, a special knack for those animals that she grooms.
You have to.
Oh yeah, and it's really, you know, she taught me a lot with you know, there's a lot about, you know, taking care of the little critters that we have, and because they're part of the family.
Yeah, and it's very important, and I'm glad you mentioned this because it is so important for the wife to be, you know, oftentimes the spouse, whether you're a man running for office or a woman, the spouse kind of gets left in the cold, and you really need to have that support there. So it's good to know that your wife is in this race with you.
Yeah, she is.
Literally in a
and she's
real
a great
sense.
gal.
Well, I want to back up now on a couple of things here. Now, you were 4 years on the county down there. Let's see, we talked about the fire department. Gosh, there was something else. Well,
I was over the indigent. They did ask me to be over the indigent.
now that had to be interesting.
That was interesting because you get a lot of people come in and they want this money for their child to have their tonsils out. Well, I went and talked to the doctor, Dr. Daines at that time, and he says, no, the kid's got tonsillitis, but you know, we're not going to take the tonsils out. So they just wanted to get some money for whatever other means. And so, but I also found monies that we could use, other people, we found ways to help them with other ways besides using the county monies.
Now that's an interesting thing too.
So this is a bigger county, so that's going to be a little harder. But there is money out there, and we watch that pretty close down there. And you got people coming traveling through, and we would help them. And maybe it wasn't kind, but we would help them. Maybe enough gas, enough food to get to the next county, and then we'd pass it on to them. But that's just what you had to do.
Where you're helping somebody
but
else.
we helped them. Yeah, we helped them.
And, talking about money, and this is anytime you get into politics, it's all about money, and you can always say follow the money.
Yes.
And we've followed the money since we've been here. And one of the things that I find fascinating, I don't understand how this came to be, but it's fascinating to me that every year, School District 25 can go to the county and they can get up to $1 million to supplement their income. I'm all for education, but it seems to me like there's something here that doesn't quite work for me. It's not the county's job to support the school system. At least I don't think it is. But they find that $1 million every year, up to $1 million. Last year I think it was about 800,000. Of course, the school district is every year, every couple of years they're asking for additional monies. But the county, when my wife and I first got here, the county had just received an enormous rebate from the state. And I don't know all of the mechanics of it, but the amount of money was huge. And our property taxes were going to go down. A lot of things were going to happen. And the only thing that I can recall happening was all county employees got a raise. Now, I'm not against employees getting a raise when they're due, and they probably were overdue. But it kind of stuck in my craw that with all this money we got back, I never saw a reduction in my taxes. And the only thing that I saw that ever happened was that the county gave everybody, including the county commissioners, they all got a raise. And there's still a couple of $1 million that nobody really knows whatever happened to it. Don't know where it went.
They've always said that they hold the line, but we've got to do better than that. I challenged them, a few years ago to take a 10% discount in their wage. Well, one of them said it's silly. It's not silly.
It's silly.
We got to start somewhere, and if we don't do it here in the county, then we're in trouble, and we've got to start here. You may have some attrition through employees, and you don't know, and that's what happens. But if you can get by without replacing them, I'm always for employees and the employees and everybody. That's the backbone of any entity, any company, and something that we have to deal with. And but there's a lot of things that can change, and this is something that I want to do, is get in there and find out what can be done and change it. And so we need to do that.
Well, one of the areas that I found it interesting, and it kind of goes along with this big savings that we were going to see because we got all this money back from the state. I don't remember the amount of money. It was over $3 million. I just don't remember. I wish I had thought to look that up before I came in. But within a year or two, the county had to pass a levy for the mosquito abatement district. And I'm like everybody else. I don't want mosquito problems either. I don't want illnesses and all that. We don't have that big a problem with mosquitoes here. It's not like living in Chicago or someplace, and I remember mosquitoes back there very well in the suburban area. But I thought at the time, well, they've got all this money that we've never heard where it went other than the raises. Why are they coming to us for this levy when they could take some of that money that they got back? That was never answered either. I don't know, it just seems to me that it would be in our best interest if we had some new blood on that county commission.
Well, and that's what we're trying to do, you know, and none of us are perfect, we're all sinners anonymous, there's only one perfect person.
None of us are anonymous, everybody knows we're sinners.
That's right. So, but anyhow, getting back to the indigent, I want to say a little about that.
Sure.
Years ago I was out of employment for months, and we didn't have any food coming in the house, and I was too bullheaded to ask for help. Well, and finally I did. I asked my brothers and sisters, and they refused. But it was affecting my family physically, and it was really hard for us. So when you talk about people when they have problems, I've been there. I've been hungry. My family's been hungry. So I have empathy for them, and so it's just something that I know that when people are having troubles, we try to do the best we can. I don't know if we could want to maybe read something here about.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. J. Reuben Clark, he was a statesman, a very good individual, and he goes on, he says, we must purge our hearts of the love of ease. We must put out our lives the curse of idleness. He said, God declared that mortal man should earn his bread by the sweat of his brow. That is the law of this world. In the past, it has taxed our economic strength and system to keep the relatively very few idle rich. That task shows us that no great group can be kept in idleness. It surely is not natural to believe that they may. People have been insufficiently fed and clad with everyone working who are able to work. Why delude ourselves into thinking that a third of us may live in idleness and be better off than now? Then why not have a half idle and increase the prosperity? And if half, why not 2/3? And if 2/3, then why not all of us idle and have every man a millionaire and nobody working? Furthermore, to provide by the law that a third shall have to live off the 2/3 is set up as legal slavery of the 2/3 who work. As one within the age of proposed idle class, I protest with all the spirit and strength I possess against the infliction upon me of such a curse. He said, may the Lord forbid that this shall come. For the decrepit and the infirm, from any cause we all have the deepest sympathy, as also for those in distress from causes beyond their control. To all such we owe a sacred duty to help. God's law has always been, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. This we must do. But side by side with this law is another law declared from the beginning that while man can work, he must work. These are the two great laws. It's interesting because we have a lot of things that happen to us out there with our lives, and we just we have to realize that. I talked to a doctor years ago. I says, what does it take to take care of ourselves? He says, well, let's see, 96%. He says, no, he says 98% of the families can take care, should be able to take care of themselves. It's the family's responsibility. And then if the family can't do it, then it's the church, then it's the city or the county, and then the state, but never the federal government. Mm-hmm. Paul Harvey said, taking federal aid is like giving yourself a transfusion from one arm to the other with a leaky hose.
Well said.
And I always remembered that. Yeah. So we have to avoid that like a plague. And a lot of people are looking at the federal government. We got to stay away from it. And
this is one of the things that, now, when you showed this to me earlier, one of the things that I was taken by was when this man lived. This is a problem that's been going on forever.
Okay, he was born in 1871. He died in 1961. He died at 90 years old. Yeah. When he said this, he was 66 years old.
The more things change, the less they change.
Yeah.
But some things, and that is a from what I understand, of course, I don't have the inner workings. I'm not in there, but I understand that indigent care is an expensive proposition here in the county.
Yeah, it is.
And you've got some background on that, so that you're coming in with something I would know very little about.
Yeah. Well, I have, like I said, I have empathy for anybody that's having a problem because I've been there. I've been hungry. Yeah. My family's been hungry. So you'll never forget that. And we went deer hunting one time, and my mother made an egg sandwich for me, and I hated egg sandwiches. But after we got pulling those deer out of the mountains above Bear Lake, I was so hungry. To this day, I still like egg sandwiches.
And I never had one quite that way, but I love them. I love egg sandwiches.
Yeah. But it's interesting, what happens to us.
Now, having been a county commissioner yourself, you understand the mechanics of it. You understand what it's all about. Yeah. Where do you think we can see some improvement or some change that would benefit all of us here, that you could have some involvement with?
We have to meet. If I'm elected, I will spend some time with all the elected officials and find out a little bit more about what's happening with the county. And I need the people's help. And you don't hear a lot what's going on with the elected officials. And as time allows, I'll spend time out in the county and meeting with the people. Because if you want to vote against something or something's not working out, you need we got to get the people to back us, and that's what I'm going to try to do. And spend the time and but it's a big county. It's a lot different than when we were in Bear Lake, and everybody knew everybody in the courthouse. But you go to the courthouse here and they got their little cubicles and that's all that's happening, and so. But we've got to I've got to spend some time and and this is, this is what I'm going to try to do.
Well, now, one of the things that you may recall a couple of years ago, gosh, the time flies, but a couple of years ago when the commissioners moved themselves out of the courthouse and they moved themselves into the county building down on South 5th.
Yeah.
They each have a little office, and they're not ostentatious office. This is not like they set themselves up in princely surroundings. I'm not accusing that. But there were an awful lot of people that thought they could probably have done something like that right across the street from the current courthouse.
Yes.
If they felt, and the story that we got, and I say story, the excuse, the reason, however you want to say this, as you may recall, was that they were in violation of state laws because they were able to meet, and there was some convoluted reason for it, and they just had to have these offices away from each other.
I question them. I question that.
A lot of us did, and I still do, and I've been out to their offices down there.
That's very frustrating, and we need to have them in the courthouse or close to it, instead of out there, and that's something that we need to look at.
Well, yeah, and it seems like ever since they moved, you
lost track.
You lost track. You never hear anything from them or about them.
And that's what I'm going to try to do, is get out and meet with the people.
Yeah.
When I was out campaigning before, we were out knocking on doors, and I met some people that work for the county, and I even get some anonymous letters from somebody in the county. I don't know if they work for the county or what, but because they tell me what they feel and what they're frustrated about, and I hope they will continue to give me those letters so they can help.
There are some serious personnel problems.
Oh, yes, there is.
We don't hear about them often.
No.
I hear about them just like you do, and probably because I'm...
Yeah, they don't dare say anything.
No, and I understand that, having been in civil service, and I understand how the bureaucracy can steamroll the little guy.
It is.
But there are some serious problems that are going to have to be dealt with, and and obviously... Now, I didn't invite any of the establishment people on my show deliberately, because I'm of the opinion that we need some change. We need some change in the county commission. We need a change in the county clerk's office, one of the most powerful offices in the whole state. People do not understand how powerful the county clerk is.
Right. With the court system and everything.
Yes.
Yes.
And we need some answers there.
Yes.
But really, the county commissioners are the leaders of we count on you guys, and I'm going to talk as if you were a commissioner. We count on you to represent us and lead the rest of the employees and make it all work.
Yeah.
And well, I think we have some dysfunction here.
Well, that's something that I hope to do. And I hope to be able to get involved more and let the people know what's going on, and have a little bit better rapport with what's happening. Let me tell you a little about why I use my H.
Please do.
Will that be okay?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mentioned it earlier.
You did mention it. My middle name is Herbert. I was named after my uncle, Herbert Reinhold. He was a Marine on the Arizona. He was supposed to have been off the ship that morning at 10 minutes to 7 on December 7, 1941. His relief got drunk the night before, and so he was passed on the island, and my uncle got killed. And so I always use that H in there to honor him. My dad was in Panama. I served in the Army. My brother was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, retired. I didn't serve. I missed Vietnam, but my brother-in-law packed a machine gun in Vietnam, and I have a nephew that's in the Army. And so the military is an important part of my life, and I always use that H to honor my uncle that sacrificed his life for us.
And it's interesting for me because everybody in my audience knows about my heart's in the Corps. So when you mentioned your uncle on the Arizona, they're the two biggies for the Navy and the Marine Corps right there.
Yeah.
The Arizona, that's it's an idol. I don't know how you would say it, but the Arizona is so respected throughout the whole Navy. They still teach about the Arizona.
Yeah.
And the Marines on the Arizona. Boy, there's a double whammy. So now I was already in your corner.
And I heard you this on one of your shows that December 7th this year, they didn't say much about it, did they? This
was the sad thing this year. I was so disappointed, and I kind of screwed it up in the program last week because I got confused on it. They didn't say a thing about Lincoln's birthday. Now, as you may recall, and we're kind of getting off point, but since we're talking about this, it's been so many years now. It's been, 20 or 30 years, let's say 20, that it used to be that we had Lincoln's birthday. The children were taught about that. And I don't think it was a legal holiday, but we all were taught about that, and we would learn something about Lincoln on Lincoln's birthday. Yeah. And then on the 22nd of February was Washington's birthday, still is, but in order to come up with a new holiday for Dr. King, Martin Luther King, some bright boys in Washington decided that, well, let's do away with observing Lincoln's birthday and Washington's birthday. We'll make President's Day. That'll cover both of them, and we can honor Dr. King. Well, I think a lot of us wanted to honor him anyway, but it seemed like a kind of a strange way to do it. February, I believe, is Black History Month, and so I understand, and there was a lot of sentiment that Dr. King should have recognition, and I'm not changing that. I think he deserved it and should, but I think it's unfortunate that our founding first president, now, there was a president before Washington.
Yes.
Some people don't know that. You probably know that.
That's right.
We've long forgotten that because Washington was such an important figure in the beginning of our country. And then Lincoln and the Civil War, and yet now they've combined them, and they didn't even teach, and as I mentioned on my program, my granddaughter came home, she's in private Christian school, and they were talking about Darwin, that it was Darwin's birthday. And I thought, has it infected the schools to the point where even the private Christian school are not honoring, I mean, just, all right, at least do President's Day if you're not going to do Lincoln on his birthday, you know.
You know, it's interesting, as I was studying the Constitution with Cleon Skousen, we talked about Washington quite extensively. You know, he lost, 9 battles before he won our independence. And there was one battle he was telling us about, that the men started retreating. And he got so mad, he got on that white horse of his, and he started charging, and with his cloak flying back and forth. They literally had to take him off the horse, pull him down. When they pulled him down, he had bullet holes through his cloak.
Yeah.
Nothing never touched him.
Yeah.
You know,
and he was a big guy. He was 6'6" or something like that.
He was, yeah. So, you know, it's unfortunate because since the early 1900s, they started deviating away from the original concept of the Constitution.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because we're in trouble, and we're in trouble back east. And you know, we've got to start on the local level, and that's what I'm trying to do.
And this is, I'm so glad that you brought this up, because some of you may be wondering, well, why are you guys talking about the Constitution? What does that have to do with running for county commissioner? It has everything to do.
I'll say it does.
Because all politics is local. And you, as a county commissioner, you're down in the dirt with us guys, with us local guys, where I can come out to your office and say, look, Commish, I'm not happy about this. What are you going to do about it? And you can tell me what you're going to do about it or what you can't do about it, but you can talk to me. That's the first level of government. I mean, beyond city council, that's the first level of I can't go to the Senate in Washington. I can't even get hold of my local senator because he's in Washington.
That's right.
It's not bum rapping him, but you know, he's got his duties there. But I can go to you and I can say, what are you doing about this? And why are you doing it?
And that's why I need your help if I get in. Because you know, you can fight between yourselves, but if you see something there that's not legitimate, has nothing to do with county government, then you know, we need to just, you know, get out of it.
And the Constitution is the basis for all that.
And I need the people's help, and that's what I'm going to try to do, is to keep them informed, letters or whatever to the paper, or whatever, you know, whatever I can, you know, when as time allows.
Now, I know you're part-time employed, so that, I know that's time limiting, but I'm guessing that you plan to go out and knock on a few doors.
Oh yes, I've got the time. Yeah.
And
yes,
and of course that's so important, and this county is just spread all over the place. But I suspect that you're going to get some folks here that want to help you. Yours truly being one of them.
Well, we hope so. You know, and that's fine. You know, and then we appreciate whatever you can do.
Now, do you have a website for it? Yes, you do. Here, I asked you for this, Liberty, earlier. Now, the website, and I'm going to direct you to the website, and you can see how you can get involved. The website is www, World Wide Web, .libertyWrit, and it's one word.
W-R-I-T, Liberty Writ, W-R-I-T.com.
Okay, so it's LIBERTYWRIT, libertywrit.com. And that's
and then you'll have to put in Dennis H. Spencer, and then go search. We don't have a lot on right now, but we will as time goes on. And but they've got to put my name in it, then push search, and then it'll bring my my website up.
Okay. Now you gave me your email site too, and you're comfortable with giving your email site?
Yeah.
I always tell you at the beginning of the program, and I forgot this time, and I'm embarrassed that I did. So, take a moment to get a pencil and paper, or maybe you keep one next to your TV like I do, You've already looked down Liberty Writ. It's one word. Is it case sensitive? Because it doesn't matter if it's uppercase, lowercase.
I don't think so. I think it works either way.
I think most of them do that
Yeah,
automatically now.
Yeah, it does. It picks it up. It'll pick it right up.
Or his email site, which is Spencer Den. Now remember, his name is Dennis H. Spencer, but go backwards here. Spencer Den.
SpencerDen at cable1 CABLE1ONE.
It's all one word there.
Yeah, all one word. .net, N-E-T.
And that's important that you use .net. We're so accustomed to .com, we forget.
Yeah, it's got to be .net.
And you have to spell cable right. I get people.
CABLEONE.
Yes, and it's one word, cable1, CABLEONE.
Yes.
.net. Shoot him an email. Dennis is not going to abuse your email site when you send him one, so don't worry about that kind of thing. But yeah, you know, government is it's gotten so ponderous, even on the local level, and now with the elections coming up, May the 20th, I think, is the election. Is that correct?
Yes. Tuesday.
May the 20th. We're going to have an opportunity here on a local level to do a couple of things. Hopefully replace some of the establishment Republicans. And I use that term, I guess I could say it's a pejorative, because these guys have gotten so entrenched in the establishment, they've forgotten why they're there. And it's time to have a change. And it's a rare thing for us to have someone such as you who has some background, who is not looking for a new career, you know, but has, and boy, this is so important, and I don't want to overplay it, he has the constitutional concept of why the government's supposed to work.
Love the Constitution. It hit me with hit me with such force when I took that course in McLeod-Skousen.
Yeah.
And it's you know, our founding fathers sacrificed a lot, and we've got to fight for what they did. You know, and not only, you know, like my uncle who died on the Arizona.
Yes.
You know, he can't die in vain.
Absolutely.
You know,
that's well said.
But I don't know if we can say anything about Brian Smith.
By all means. Now,
Okay.
He had asked me earlier in the program, can I talk about another candidate? And I asked him what, and he said Brian Smith. I said, by all means. You know, I thought, being as he's a candidate for office, he might want to gangster slap somebody. That wasn't the case. So go ahead.
You know, I met Brian Smith when he flew into Pocatello, you know, last June, and then all of a sudden I get a call, and he wanted me to help him with his campaign. And so I said, yes, I will. And I've taken him down to Bear Lake, Soda Springs a couple times. He's been down on his own a few times. But, you know, Mike Simpson, he's trying to justify what he has done. He's voted for a lot of bailouts, and that's unfortunate. But Brian is a great guy. He's a constitutionalist, and we need to support him, you know, the best we can. And let me talk a little about Russ Fulcher.
Please do.
Russ Fulcher, I met the family years ago. I used to do warranty work for a corporation, and I was working in his house repairing some faulty windows. And I met his family, a very nice family, very good guy. And I met him when he came into Pocatello here, you know, a couple of months ago. And so I'm backing Russ Fulcher, you know, for governor, because he's one that we need to be in there to be able to help, you know, help Idaho. And it's unfortunate that Otter's gone the way he has, and you know, we want to get, you know, good people in there. And so with Brian Smith and Russ Fulcher, there's some good guys to work for.
And you know, this is kind of an unusual thing, because we don't usually get a candidate on my show that is willing to talk about other candidates. But I think it's so important that we kind of, you know, a new broom sweeps clean.
Yes.
And I think we need to put a new broom to work.
Yeah.
And obviously, I certainly support your candidacy. I'm limited as to what I can say because we're on public access.
Absolutely.
So, but I certainly support your candidacy, as I do Russ Fulcher and Brian Smith. I think it's time that we had a clean sweep, that we get rid of some of the cobwebs and the dust in the corners and start talking to people as you are, as Brian is. I have had the privilege of meeting Brian on several occasions. Very down-to-earth guy, very successful independent businessman, an attorney. Russ Fulcher, I've had the privilege, I only met him twice, I think. And here again, he's been very active in the Assembly for years. He knows his way around the Capitol, but he's just a really down-to-earth guy.
He's fighting for Idaho.
He's fighting for Idaho, and all three of these fellows, Dennis H. Spencer, I want you to remember that name, and Brian Smith and Russ Fulcher, and they're not the only ones. There are some other good people that are running for statewide office as well as
Yes.
other offices. But we just need to support people that are clear on constitutional concepts. Because the reason we're in this mess now is because the people that are supposedly representing us have forgotten that, and they're representing themselves.
Absolutely.
And they've forgotten the basic.
They've been in there too long, and we've got to make a change.
Well, look at Simpson's been there 8 terms, 16 years.
Yeah, that's terrible.
That's too much time.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And I think he could be, didn't mean to beat up on Simpson, but I think he could be the poster boy for term limits.
Yes.
And there are others,
Yeah.
but he's the one that's in this District 2. And
Yeah, absolutely.
so there. Well, Dennis, we're pretty good on time, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about is there a pet project that you kind of, and I don't mean that to be derogatory, is there something that you feel particularly strongly that you really want to get your teeth into?
Just that we got to get the taxes. How are we going to invite business in here if we have a higher tax base than what we do? We got to get that down.
Yes.
And we can't just keep going and hold the line. We've got to change, and that's going to, it's going to kill us. And we've just got to be able to somehow, and I will pledge that I will take and ask for a 10%, discount in wage. I will challenge the other elected officials. The county commissioners have a complete control of the budget. They have, even though the other elected officials elected, the county commissioners have complete control. So when the other people turn in their budgets, we got to look at that and say, okay, what can you do to help? Let's kind of get it down. And there's a lot of places, there's a lot of waste. And maybe we can do some more of private enterprise, coming in and doing some of the work instead of doing it with the county.
Well, we need to get some private enterprise in here. Our growth rate has been all but stagnant.
We can't be in competition with them.
And I want to point out here, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Dennis is not saying he wants all the employees to take a 10% cut in pay.
No.
Talking about the commissioners.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm a challenge. They may override me,
yeah,
but I'll stand my ground with it. If I'm elected, they may. They got 3. They voted against me down Bear Lake. But I stood my ground.
And that's important today. To get an elected official who will stand his ground for the right principles. Yeah. That's becoming more and more rare.
Yeah, you can't give in.
Well, Dennis, there's never enough time to cover everything.
I know.
And I really wish you well. And
I appreciate you letting me come in tonight. And it's been a very interesting experience, and first time I've ever been on television.
So, you've done good.
Okay, good. Yeah,
it can be unnerving.
That's all right, and we can handle it. I've been called every name under the sun, but I can handle it. So that's all right.
You have broad shoulders. You can handle it.
So, yeah, so it was really really nice, and I appreciate your opportunity.
I'm
me this opportunity.
Delighted, and I hope we get a chance to do this at least one more time before you.
I'd be glad to do that
before you go.
Sure.
Now remember, this is we're kind of leading up to the elections in May.
Mm-hmm.
People who are going to be running in the primaries, and really that's what we're preparing for now.
Yes.
Is Dennis will be running in the primaries for District
2. Everybody gets confused about that. They say, "Well, can I vote for you? I live out in McCammon or Ingham." No, anybody in the county can vote.
Yeah, it's a county-wide seat.
The county is broke up in 3 different districts. Okay, the District 2 4 years ago was a 4-year term. What they do, they rotate it. Mm-hmm. Okay, 2 years ago it was Manwaring, and he's in a 4-year term. Mm-hmm. This time it's Carl Anderson's district is in a 4-year term. So they rotate. So if you get 2 that's voted out, you have 1 commissioner that has 2 years experience, so it can carry on the county work.
Now you're running for District 2.
I'm running that's a 2-year term.
And who is that?
Steve Hadley.
That's Steve Hadley.
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't say his name, so.
Yes, Steve Hadley.
Okay.
And so, so that's why they rotate it to keep somebody in there that's got some experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. So that's why I've had to wait for 4 years, mm-hmm. because of the 4-year term that Steve, Mr. Hadley was in.
Okay.
So
well, and that makes sense.
With how that works.
Okay.
But anybody can vote. It's in the county, so.
It is a county-wide seat, so
yes.
I'm sure you're going to be knocking on doors down in McCammon and other places in the county.
I've out there before, so.
And we'll be looking for. We're a little bit further away from that now. May is 2.5 months away, so it's close, but it's not that close. But we'll be looking for getting out and talking to people and getting up some yard signs eventually and stuff like that.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I don't mind. I love to talk to people. I like to find out a little about them and what's going on with them and what concerns they have, and this is what, what I'm going to continue doing.
Well, Dennis, thank
Okay.
you so very much. I can't tell you how
Okay.
much I appreciate having you on.
Thanks, Ralph.
I
That was
really
really
hope we get
nice.
to do this again.
Yeah, we'll do her. Thanks.
All right, good. Well, we've been meeting with Dennis H. Spencer, and when he first told me why he uses the H in his name, I was so impressed by that. I just had to ask him to share that, and I didn't really have to twist his arm. He wants to share that, and I was so glad because it's such an old-fashioned attribute, so to speak. Now, I want to quickly. I want to share one other thing with you. It's going to be very quick because I had asked Dennis. I said, Dennis, I hope you'll let me give you the whole hour. We want to talk to you and get to know you a little bit. We're going to hopefully get a chance to meet him again. Well, Fooey, there was something that I had wanted to share with you, but it's a little bit too late, so we will do that next time. Well, let's see if we can't leave on kind of a light note. I'm throwing a curve to you, Josh, and it may be too late. Can you look at, let's see, can you look at 5J and see if you can spin that up? Can't do it. Okay, we're too little time. We're not going to do. We're going to do that next time. Well, we're in a very exciting, sometimes exasperating time of the year, or every other year, however it is, with the primaries coming up, and you're going to be getting a lot of political talk. People are going to be asking you for money. They're going to be wanting your vote. People that you haven't seen for a long time are going to remember how much they loved you. A lot of things are going to be happening. I would urge you, please look for the candidate who believes that our Constitution really still means something. I was so disappointed when we had the Republican reorganization 4 years ago, and a friend of mine overheard some of the establishment Republicans, as I call them, establishment Republicans, talking about how they didn't support the Republican platform, which made me wonder why they were even bothering to run for the office that they were running for. And they felt that the Constitution was outmoded and outdated. Now, I understand those are concepts that the Democrats and the liberal progressives feel strongly about. I'm old-fashioned enough to believe the Constitution still means something. It's the basis for our government, and it is not evolving. It's there. It's like God's word. It doesn't change just because we'd like it to. So I'm always eager to have constitutionally oriented candidates that I can talk with, like Dennis Spencer, and I hope you'll remember that name. Get hold of him. Again, you can go to www.libertywrit, that's one word, libertywrit, LIBERTYWRIT.com, or go to SpencerDen, that's one word, SPENCER DEN, at cableone.net. Get to know more about Dennis. We're going to be talking about other candidates for you in the future. So in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you'll join us again next week at the same time, every Wednesday night at 8:30. In the meantime, have a good, safe week. God bless you and yours. Remember, the people you vote for are the people that serve you. So be sure you choose the right candidates. God bless you. Good night. See you next week.